Australia has confirmed it'll follow the European Union's lead in imposing sanctions against Iran over its alleged nuclear weapons program.
The Foreign Minister Kevin Rudd has used talks in London to express his support for the EU's oil embargo. For more, Europe correspondent Philip William joins us from London. And Philip, it seems that Kevin Rudd again has been very keen to emphasise Australia's role in the international efforts, and in this case giving some strong support to the EU's move.
Yes, very much identifying with it, attaching himself to it and saying that Australia will follow that lead. He says, and I quote, "The message needs to be delivered to the people of Iran, the wider political elites of Iran, as well as the government of Iran, that their behaviour is globally unacceptable." And he says that in effect that means that we won't be taking any Iranian oil. Well, that's not terribly meaningful in the sense that we've got virtually no Iranian oil coming to Australia anyway. However, he says there is a real cost for Australia. He says that our exports have been slashed quite dramatically since we've been taking punitive action against Iran, so that it is quite measurable, and it doesn't come without pain, but he says it's a cost that's worth bearing. So, yeah, strong statement of support, and no doubt the Iranians will take very strong note of that, and possibly restrict Australian imports from Australia even further. It's too early yet to get a reaction from the Iranian government.
Has there been any reaction from the British government or others in the EU about Australia joining that, and presumably other nations following suit as well?
Yes, William Hague, who's the Foreign Secretary, was on the stage with Kevin Rudd here in London, along with Stephen Smith and his counterpart, Philip Hammond, Defence Secretary. They were here for what they call the OCMIN talks, which are annual talks between those four individuals, basically to cement our diplomatic and defence relationships. And yes, they appreciated, the Brits certainly appreciated that support. They were obviously had discussed that in their conversations over the last 2 days here in London, and saw that as a positive. What actual effect it has is probably fairly negligible, but in the global sense, having the support of a middle power like Australia in the region we're in is very useful for the Brits and for the others, Europeans, of course, involved in those sanctions. Of course, those sanctions are phased in. They'll be over a 6-month period, and one of the reasons is, and this was discussed in the press conference today, was to allow Greece, which is fairly dependent on Iranian oil, to find other arrangements. If they just cut them dead, then they would be in trouble. They'd have no access to oil all of a sudden. So they've been given that period of grace. But yeah, no, undoubtedly the Australian support seen as a very useful adjunct to the other action by the European Union and by the Americans.
And